Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Robert McDowall. We're going to take a look at two taboo subjects, politics and religion. Robert, good to see you. Hello, Robert.
Good to see you, and I'm glad we're not talking about sex, Tony.
Well, you have to have drugs and rock and roll as well, don't we, as far as
Yes, I think
taboos are
so, yeah.
concerned. So we'll just keep it to politics and religion, I think, Robert.
Absolutely.
Let's start off with the states of Guernsey. GST, has it been kicked for the final time down the road, the can?
Well, clearly there's a total impasse at the moment. The Policy and Resources allegedly is not going to resign over this. They're going to stay in post. They can try to get GST and other tax measures through in the budgets that are upcoming in the next 2 years. I think that's going to be difficult, and it's going to get rather awkward and cantankerous. And my view is call a general election. Call a general election, and let tax be the centre stage for all the deputies.
I'll come on to that again in a moment, if I may. But coming back to GST, did they put through enabling legislation some time ago? I mean, is it there just to pull the lever sort of thing?
They did. There was some general. Oh gosh, I forget, a few years ago, and theoretically they can just pull that down, enable it. Obviously, clearly, it's got to go through the states of Guernsey and so on. But yes, it has been there, and why it didn't go through is a mix of, I suggest, personalities, timing, and that it wasn't proposed along with other measures. There are other measures which allegedly will come in, but that was sort of thrust in people's face, I think, and had too prominent a role. I would have put it equal with the other possible measures, whether those are a reduction in expenditure, whether that is looking at other forms of taxation like corporation tax. It was just too prominent and too emotional.
And very reminiscent of poor old Theresa May trying to get her Brexit deal through. Has a general election and virtually loses a working majority.
Well, that's right. And I suppose if a general election were called and held, it probably is a matter of conjecture what the outcome will be, particularly as we have government by consensus, if I could put it like that, in Guernsey. You don't know what packages will appear in terms of alliances and so on. So it is a difficult one, but if PNR wanted to pull the trigger, so to speak, that might be something they should consider.
Should the estates of Alderney weighed in and supported GST in the way that they did?
I think that is going to come back and hit them. Clearly, if there were either a general election or a change in PNR, I think it could well put the airport, the full airport construction here under pressure. So I also the states of Alderney wouldn't have liked it if the states of Guernsey had weighed in on some particular matter. So I think it was a rather bold and audacious measure, but I think it's going to backfire on them ultimately.
So it is a matter of concern. And of course, based on Mr. Fairbrush saying that he was going to have to look at a whole load of cuts if GST didn't go through, puts the runway into jeopardy, doesn't it?
Well, I think it does, on the basis that we have no way of knowing this, that the procurement and other processes for the runway have not gone too far to turn back. But on the basis that they've not passed the point of no return, then yes, I do think it puts other than the agreed small refurbishment in jeopardy.
The Guernsey political parties, now they were quite prominent at the last election, but
Yeah, they
they
were a
they seem
factor.
to have faded into obscurity somewhat.
Yeah, yeah, yes. I mean the what was it? The Party of All People or whatever it was called. The Gavin St Pierre one has sort of faded into oblivion, and the Guernsey Party I think has 2 members.
Yeah, so bit like the SDP, wasn't it?
So you know,
Yeah, so there
which
we
is
are.
which is faded out.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. Let's come on to the states of Alderney now. We've actually had an election, a contested election.
Well, that's right. I mean, there was about 35% turnout, pretty low actually. Admittedly, it was above the plebiscite turnout, which was 30%, but pretty low. And I both candidates, how should I put it? I think they could have studied their brief a bit better. I
Yeah,
don't think they really had their hands on what were the key issues. You know, they say they will try their best, do well, and all that good stuff. But I guess people are fed up with those old stories. Frankly, most of them never come to fruition, I'm afraid.
there's a
So
lot
there
of,
is
yeah, apathy.
apathy, disinterest,
Yeah.
cynicism. You call it what you like.
I'll tell you something I find, Robert. I find it quite intimidating when the candidates are hanging around in the porch. You
But
sort of, feel a bit obliged.
what I do. I mean, I asked if they'd buy me a drink. But,
Well, I have to.
no,
When we lived in Woking, I used to go
yeah,
along to general elections there. They had, people doing the exit polls,
yeah,
and I always told them as a matter of principle that I'd voted for somebody else
yes, yes,
because, I just don't like the way, it's supposed to be a secret ballot. And I
right.
just don't like the way that these people are sort of there, not necessarily trying to
Mm,
put pressure on
mm.
you, but, slightly intimidating.
Well, certainly, if they're ever external electoral observation, that would certainly be a point of criticism that the electoral observers would make. Now, I
Yeah.
think it's extremely unhealthy, and it should be. I think it should be.
Mm. Well, so you'd think in terms of keeping them outside the gates.
Yeah, yeah, yes. There was no. I mean, you go around, you deliver your leaflets, you speak to people, but there's absolutely no need for candidates to stand outside. I mean, and I would pat myself on the back. Many years ago, when I stood, I didn't go near the place on the
Mm.
day.
Mm.
I think it's a very bad habit,
Yeah.
and certainly wouldn't be allowed in the UK anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's allowed in Guernsey either.
No. Um, Nigel Voot was on Tony.at.12 a couple of weeks ago. And I
Yeah,
asked him about this question because, once again, Mr. Fairbrush, who's playing quite a big part in this interview, had stated that if there's no GST, he'd have to substantially increase TRP.
yeah.
Now, I said to Mr. Voot, well, how would that affect Alderney? And he said that in his view, it wouldn't. Alderney would continue to be independent in terms of the rate charged. But I don't see that, do you?
Well, he's right in a sense because all the property taxes have been repatriated
Mm.
to Alderney. Now, you could you could say no, we ain't going to have TRP, but I would suggest about Alderney may need to raise additional taxes itself
Mm.
through property. Now, whether that's a congé, whether it's a window tax, whether it's a tax on holiday homes or whatever, they would certainly need to raise tax. So while technically Nigel Voot is correct, he would be, or the PNF would be probably looking around for where they could raise other forms of tax.
In other words, what happens in Guernsey would naturally imprint itself on Alderney.
Exactly. So it does. Yeah. So they would have to look at, well, what's this going to mean for us? What are we going to be short on? We may not be getting as much, say, on the transferred service, etc., etc. And so we're going to have to raise more taxes. And how are we going to do it? Well, property taxes is the main way of doing it here.
Yeah. They're talking now about a special committee for economic growth. That's good.
Yeah.
But the simple fact of the matter is that if you're starting a business over here, it's virtually impossible to open a bank account. So how does that work?
Well, it doesn't work in crude terms, Tony. I think unless people are coming here to live and having some sort of what I loosely call lifestyle business, if you generally want to do business into Alderney, do it from the UK.
Yeah,
there are a couple of organisations who do it. The Right Move. James Hawkswood runs the business from the UK. He may have someone here on the ground doing the showings and the concierge stuff, but all the billings, all the fees come from the UK through a UK company with the relevant allowances, write-downs, and so on, which are more generous in the UK. So, yeah, why start the business in Alderney? And the big thing, I mean, the bank account issue is a big issue because, candidly, the clearing banks are not really interested in retail business in the Channel Islands, particularly since the ring fencing of retail banking in the UK. They have to have liquidity here, in Jersey, and in the Isle of Man, and it's a mess for them. The only way to resolve it, and that this wouldn't go down at all well, is to assign the regulation of retail banking to the UK regulator, so that the retail banks could consolidate all their stuff together. But you can imagine how that will go down in the states of Guernsey
and with the GFSC.
And with the GFSC, exactly. So that sort of a remedy won't do. But so it's a difficult one, and unless they solve this, the economic development initiatives is going to be a rather half-hearted initiative, in my view.
Interestingly, now that we're just down to the one bank on Alderney, G4S is offering a cash collection service. But of course, businesses are going to have to pay G4S to collect and their own bankers to receive the cash, aren't they?
Exactly. So it's rather it's bank charges times 2 or 3, I would think. Although, I mean, heaven forbid, but if HSBC did close here, and they've assured me, among others, that they have no intention of closing, then I think services like that would have to be looked at in a lot greater detail. Actually.
Yeah. I mean, I told you I was shocked a few months ago to go to the Woking branch of HSBC and to discover it wasn't there anymore.
No.
And there was a notice on the wall saying your nearest branch is Guildford. And when you sort of think of the size of the population of Woking.
Yeah. So I generally think one of the things the Economic Development Committee would need to do here is to look at the scenario of no bank accounts here.
Yeah,
I really do. That's almost a starting point. No banks here, I should say.
Yeah.
It's a starting point. Before the
I think that's absolutely
economic development.
Yeah. Do you think that's on their list?
I don't know. I'll ask.
That's very good of you. Well, that just about sorts out Guernsey and Alderney. So let's get on to the United Kingdom, because we've seen some shenanigans there recently.
Yes.
What about Sue Gray and Sir Keir Starmer? Because he was interviewed this morning and stated that Well, he didn't state. He was asked when he started negotiating with her, and he wouldn't give an answer.
No, I mean, on the basis that he's offered this lady the job as chief of staff, he's not stupid. He must have known that what the political consequences would be. So there's no point in being precious and gauche about it at this stage. Having said that, the civil service, in my view, has been getting increasingly politicized, probably since the days of Mrs. Thatcher. Actually, that's where the seeds were, and we have quite a politicized civil service in the UK. There's a lot of flitting around from business to politics to quangos and other sorts of things. So you don't have a monastic civil service any longer, and I think we have to accept that. You try to bring in measures to garden leave, declarations, other sorts of things, but the civil service is quite politicized, and I think it's going to be very, very difficult to go back to the civil service of, I don't know, the 50s and 60s and so on.
Yeah, the old genie's out of the bottle sort of thing.
It is. I don't get it back in, actually.
What about Matt Hancock and WhatsApp? I mean, how did we get to a situation where all of this, what I would have considered confidential information and subject to usual limitations, get out into the public domain? Well,
first of all, it shows the internal panic that was on. Thank goodness people didn't know about it. Otherwise, that would have increased the already existing air of panic.
Yeah.
But also the decisions were taken very much on the hoof. Maybe that's inevitable in these situations. I would never trust my biography of those days to a journalist in any circumstances. You keep that to yourself. Equally, I would have restrained use of social media, whether it's WhatsApp or anything else. These sort of the evidence, the documentation should be kept to the minutes of formal meetings, and then you wouldn't get these sort of situations. Can you imagine if this happened during the World War II?
Hate to think. But surely though it's privileged information.
Yes, it is privileged information, and there are legalities. You can go to court and so on. But this is another case where the genie's out the bottle. The relationships are soured with some people. I think I have to be careful what I say. I think Mr. Hancock showed great evidence of personal strain and stress, and perhaps that's why he's gone native, if I could put it like that, after he left office. But it's not. It shows some very unhealthy and edifying aspects of government administration, and social media has made a big contribution to it.
What was the normal rule though for stuff that is kept under lock and key? Is it 10 years?
No, it's 30. It's a 30-year. It's only 30. Brought 10 years to review, depending on what events have been. Because something that is critical perhaps can almost fade to no importance at all in 10 years. So they do start to look at things after 10, but it's normally a 30-year rule. I think any rules on over COVID have pretty well been negated by.
It certainly seems to be the case.
WhatsApp and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, obviously, if you're writing your biography, you don't have to wait 10 years for that, do you? You can.
No, you don't. Sometimes you have to get clearances on
Mm,
sensitive things or you did from the Cabinet Office.
yeah, yeah.
But you know, I wonder who wants to read Matt Hancock's biography unless you're into bodice rippers or something like that. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
What about Boris Johnson trying to appoint his getting his father a knighthood? How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm reminded when he resigned, but this is I mean, Boris Johnson's father has been a somewhat colourful character
Mm,
on the scene for 30, 40 years, a slightly dysfunctional lifestyle. He'd done a lot of things in his time. I fail to see what merit he has contributed to the Boris regime. He may say, "Well, I produced Boris." That may be his. I can't. I think it's a joke. I can't take it seriously. Although, having said that, nothing would surprise me at the moment.
it doesn't do the party any good, though, does it?
It doesn't do the party any good at all. I mean, Boris should move off the stage and stop waiting for a bit part to turn up. Frankly, he's had his turn and his time has gone, and he should go and do something else out of the limelight.
Yeah, and you know, sort of sit with Mrs. May and the other lady that was there for a very short length of time.
Temperament.
No, neither do I. Neither do I. But there we are. Let's get on to Scotland, and hopefully our good friend Alistair McPherson is listening.
Yes, yes, indeed.
And have you got any ideas why Nicola Sturgeon stood down?
Well, this was almost as sudden as Harold Wilson's resignation.
Yeah,
frankly.
this is what I was going to say.
It came out the blue, and certainly in the short term, it has blunted the independence movement. There are rumours of other reasons why she resigned, which I don't want to repeat on this.
No,
frankly, but there are other reasons. It's sudden. She's gone. She's going, and it's as I say, the nationalists are going to have to regroup, but it already looks a little bit factious and fractious.
I mean, do you think this question of gender declaration was part of it? She sort of thought she was onto a loser as far as that was concerned.
I mean, I have some big issues on this gender declaration. We have about 100,000 transgender designated people across the UK. That's a very small percentage of the population, and I really don't know why so much attention is pampered on this very insignificant minority.
Yeah.
It stirs all sorts of political antagonism, and I really don't know why she was pushing it, frankly.
Just seemed, you know, that she took her eye off the ball, and the focus of independence seems to have got left behind, and it wasn't helped particularly by letting a male who had gone through changes apparently go into a female prison. I mean, that was stupid.
Yes, I mean that is one of the scenarios that had been painted or portrayed in advance of this anyway. I mean, clumsiness, cack-handedness, and utter stupidity, and focusing on what I think is a very, very irrelevant issue.
We will await an email from Alistair.
Yes, indeed.
Let's move on to Wales, because, you know, we've got to give everyone a bit of a hearing, I guess. I was listening to Welsh Questions the other day, immediately in front of PMQs. Apparently, the Welsh government are not prepared to consider building any more new roads, and they're not prepared to think in terms of a nuclear power station on Anglesey. What are they playing at?
Well, I think it's almost they want to turn it into a romantic Ruritania.
Right.
Um, uh, they they have no their economics are absolute bonkers. They're at best a principality. A lot of focus on national culture, language, and so on, and a very introspective principality, in my view. They could not manage independence themselves, and basically the sooner that the Westminster government takes a stronger hand in Wales, the better. However, they're only damaging themselves. I don't think they're damaging others. And in the end, if the standard of living, services, so on got worse, well, leave it to the Welsh government to try to sort it out. In the end, I think the Westminster government would have to come in and
But the fact of
sort
the
it out,
matter,
frankly.
yeah, but the fact of the matter is it's being run by the Labour Party. It's not as if the Nationalists are in control.
Yes, it is. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, this may be a good focus for those who are considering voting Labour in the next general election. These people live in a fantasy world where you don't have to work for a living, and the money pours down from heaven,
or comes from the money tree,
or comes from the money tree, depending on.
Now let's talk about Northern
Yes.
Ireland. I think Rishi Sunak obviously did a pretty good job to get where he got with the EU over this question of the Windsor Agreement. Will it fly? Will the DUP support it?
Well, I think the DUP say they want time to consider. I don't really think they have any other option. And I noticed that that Sinn Féin have come up with an alternative, which is that the UK and Southern Ireland run it between them. I think I think that would be more.
So that would be
DUP. So I don't think they have really much choice.
Yeah. So it's essentially you're suggesting that the so-called devolved government of Northern Ireland would just sort of be switched directly between Dublin and London. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, Now that certainly wouldn't please that would please the DUP even less than the Windsor Agreement. So I think they've just got to accept what's on offer.
Yeah.
There may be some minor textual changes, but I think Sunak's gone as far.
He's done a good job.
And there are candidly bigger issues than Northern Ireland to think about. So much money has been poured into that province over the last 40 or 50 years. People are getting fed up with it.
It just seems to be awkward for the sake of being awkward,
Exactly.
and the trouble is when you're being awkward, you're risking terrorism eruption again, aren't you?
Precisely. So I think the DUP have to accept it, and all right, give them a week or two to look at it, but I don't think they really have any other choice. Really, I really don't.
Anyway, we'll have to watch this space and look at it again at some future date. Now, we did include in the taboos religion, okay, and it was interesting.
Yes,
talking about the Church of England, and I know you're pretty au fait on these matters. This is a quote that I got. A group of Anglican leaders from around the world have rejected the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, as their leader after the Church of England backed prayers of blessing for same-sex couples. Now, first of all, what's the difference between a blessing and a wedding?
A wedding is actually a much more. It's a more formal service with exchanges of rings and other undertakings. A blessing is a more general. It's a good wish to to both parties.
Okay. Well, having accepted that,
And yeah.
I was just going to go on to say that the archbishops representing 10 of the 42 provinces in the Anglican Communion, signed a statement saying they no longer consider him leader of the global communion. These are mainly African countries, I guess, are they?
Yes. I mean, the African Anglican churches, if I could put it like that, are socially very conservative with a small c. And this I suggest has been welling up in different ways over the last 20 or so years. They find that the leadership given by many of the archbishops of Canterbury over that period has not been strong, has not been robust, and has been very equivocatory.
Yeah. Okay, so
lack of strong leadership, and they would prefer strong leadership.
Yeah. So accepting that, did that actually make any financial contribution to the Church of England, or is it an alliance?
It's an alliance. It's an alliance. It's a belief. It's a spiritual. It's a doctrine sort of alliance. No, they don't. There's no African share comes into the Church of England in the UK or anything like that. It goes the other way mainly.
But are they represented at the synods?
No, they're not. They're not represented at the national synod. There are international bodies that periodically get together, and that is particularly where these their views are made known. But I'm speaking obviously personally here. The current Archbishop of Canterbury looks as if he bears the burden of the world on his shoulder. He looks quite a tortured individual, and I think is a big equivocator. He doesn't inspire strong leadership, and I don't. That means that what I call some of the socially conservative, again with a small c, believers in the UK are falling away. They don't seem to be heard much longer. I think it tends to be those who have specific agenda points and equality. If you think of these things, such as gender recognition and marriage of same sex seem to be prominent, but I'm afraid there are a lot of what I call one club players in the General Synod who are pushing these things. I don't think it bodes well for the Church of England's future, frankly.
Do you consider them wokish?
I personally do. Yes, you probably find who would disagree, but yes, I do. There's the Church of England has been, I don't know, ambivalent. It doesn't take strong views on things. It also, in my view, interferes in politics much more than it did, and it should stick to its own job. Frankly,
that's right. Yeah,
blunt, but there we are.
Yeah. Well, we live in interesting times, don't we? As we frequently say.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry to have to say that we've virtually run out of time. I've really enjoyed talking to you as ever. Thank you very much for your input on this one, and thank you also for the guests that you come up with from time to time. They're pretty interesting people, I have to say.
Thank you. Well, as always, good to speak, Tony, and we'll speak again before too long.
Yeah, thank you, Robert.